So let's sort of like jump into it. One thing I had written down is a lot of people I talk to actually have already talked to a real estate agent. Not everybody, but a lot of my clients have. So they might be asking you this question before they ever ask me, is like, hey, I'm new to this. Where do I even start? How do I start this process? And maybe you can talk to that a little bit for our clients or our first time borrowers. Like, where are they starting in this journey?
Well, I think, a lot of people, typically what they do is, I want to buy a house, let's go look at houses, right? And so they get on Zillow or they reach out to their realtor or a friend, and they're like, let's go schedule a showing. And I'm always happy to do that because that's the excitement building. But really, you can't do anything until you have that pre-approval from you. So a lot of times I'll do that first showing. And if they don't have a pre-approval, I kind of explain it's like putting the cart before the horse. Because here's what I would hate to happen. You fall in love with this house, and then we're still in a pretty hot market, right? I mean, if it's priced right, and I tell people, depending on your price point, if it's your favorite house, it's 10 other people's favorite house. And so if we fall in love with this house, we're ready to make an offer, but now we have to go and get the loan approval. And depending on how quickly they can get the documents to you, I know you have a quick turnaround for the approval, but again, it falls back on their court too. And so potentially while we're doing all that, the house goes under contract. And then every house we look after that, doesn't hold a candle to that first one that we missed. So that's kind of what I would say. Step is it's kind of simultaneously get with your realtor and or your loan officer. And then usually they either know each other or can recommend you to one or the other.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you on that one. I did not set Beth up to say that. I didn't even know she was going to say it's the first step as far as that goes. But if you don't have your finances right, if you don't understand where you should be at or what you should be looking at, or if you should even be looking right now, or if you're on your journey of preparation, then you don't necessarily know where to start. So it's a great starting point. I think that's why realtors and loan officers do have a good partnership, because both of us, we need that relationship. In my mind, we need that relationship together, because if I have someone ready financially, but they don't have anyone guiding them in the purchase process, I mean, it's not going to go that well as far as that goes. Yeah. So
the blind leading the blind.
Exactly. So we won't get into the whole pre-approval and all the mortgage stuff today. That's not the point, but that is important. You heard it right from Beth Herbster. If you want to get started, get your finances straight. Talk to me a little bit about how you would help build confidence with the buying process for someone who's never done it before. What are some of the things you're going to do as a realtor?
So what I do personally, and especially with first-time home buyers, and even not, right? Because a lot of people, it's been 5 years, 2 years, the market changes so often. But the first thing I do is have a buyer's consult after I connect with them. And I schedule that around their, work schedule or home life schedule or whatever. And we can go to the office, we can meet at their house, whatever's convenient for them. But I just sit down with them and go through what it looks like today or in this current market to buy a home, start to finish. And we go over, of course, if they have any questions, but I'm extremely thorough in that buyer's consult because I want them, and it is a lot of information. And so I give them a little handout to take home and they can refer back to, and typically they have questions throughout, especially first-time home buyers, which is fine. But I want them to kind of have an understanding of the big picture and it's like start to finish and what to expect. I think that's huge. You mentioned the trust and the confidence in the process. When you disclose or you share with people what it's going to look like, typically they feel a little bit more at ease. It's still a life-changing decision, and for a lot of people, the biggest purchase they'll ever make, right? And so it's very important that they understand the process and what it looks like and some things to expect.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Beth had shared with me, I'm going to show it on the screen, and people won't be able to see it exactly, but it's a game. It's called Buyeropoly. This is a game of life, but this is a game of Monopoly. What are some of the things on here that you would go over in a buyer consult? Because you do use this in your buyer consult, right?
Yeah. So this is just kind of a step-by-step moving around the board, starting at go, find your realtor, find your loan officer, get your pre-approval, and then, the fun part, start to look at homes. I talk a little bit about the contract. I don't go into a whole lot of depth in the contract right off the bat, because again, this is a whole lot of information that we're covering. And typically these meetings last about an hour, sometimes less, or sometimes more. It depends on how many questions and explaining or deep diving we go in, or they want to go in. We talk about home inspections. We talk about what that looks like once we get the inspections and what to expect, because there's several things in a contract, or when you go under contract, that are negotiable. So your initial offer, you're negotiating the terms, then repairs. That's another kind of negotiating point. Sometimes the appraisal can be a negotiating point. And then I also include, while we're doing this, the lender is doing this, right? They're working on your file. They're sending it to underwriter. Be expecting them to ask for every week, a W-2 or whatever the case may be, right? Depending on the file. And then we talk about what the attorney's role is, right? So they're working on the file as well. They're making sure that the title is clear. There's no liens against the property. And then, like I said, we just kind of keep moving through the board until we get to closing. I think some things to highlight, and what especially first-time home buyers, and maybe even, like I said, seasoned home buyers that don't really think about, are the things in the middle. So these are things that you don't want to do. And what I tell my clients is, once we get that pre-approval, you just need to chill on your finances. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. Don't move money unless you ask Jed or your lender. Don't go out and buy a car. Don't change jobs. And so by talking about these things, if they're planning on doing that, then we can be set up for success, and we know what's coming, and we don't have any surprises.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't know about you, but I think most of us in the professional, real estate field have been in the situation where we're getting close to closing, and our borrower, our clients, or your clients, they're like, "Hey, I got a new job. I just started last week," kind of thing, right? Thumbs up. Or they pull up to meet you at coffee in their brand new Mercedes or something like that, right? You're like, "Oh no." Like, oh no, it doesn't always. Yeah.
I like to tell them, you don't go buy furniture, right? I know you're excited with a new house, but don't put a bunch of furniture on a credit card. Like I said, you just want to chill with your finances until you get that clear to close. And then if you want to go buy a store full of furniture, put it on a credit card or a car lot, whatever you want to do, as soon as you get the keys, you can go do it.
Yeah. I get this question quite a bit from all, people that are getting loans. It doesn't mean first time or not, but they ask me how long an approval is good for, right? And so they're like, "Hey, if I get this approval with you, Jed, how long is it good for?" And my answer to that's a lot with what you were saying is, it's good as long as you don't change anything, right? And so I could say it's good for 90 days or whatever, but really, if you change your job, or you take on more debt, or you stop paying your bills, or anything, like, the approval's not good anymore because you just changed things. The only thing that really expires on an approval is a credit report, and needs to be pulled again. Everything else needs to stay the same the whole time. You can't you're not just going to give documents once and be done with it. Usually you'll have to update them later on, and there's always a chance of it. So you would make sure you're not doing anything stupid. As far as that goes.
How long does the credit report? You mentioned that is the only thing that kind of expires. How long?
Typically, depending on the product, but typical products are 90 days from the day we run it. As long as we close in 90 days, we're not going to have to run your credit again. But that doesn't mean, just because we don't run the credit again, that if they go take out a new car loan or something, that the underwriters won't know about it, because they have access to the files, the credit files. And sometimes these purchases are going to notify the lender that something's happened. Yeah, it happens, right? It's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility, and we don't want to take the risks of possibles, right? Kind of thing. So that's it. So I like that a lot. So here's a sort of a question for you. What in your experience, what are some things that first-time homebuyers miss a lot in preparing to get ready to buy, if anything that you can think of?
I think the biggest misconception is money that they need or money that they don't know they need. Okay. Right. So a lot of times first-time home buyers have talked to their parents or a family member, or, somebody who bought a house 5 or 10 years ago. And there's this kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, stigma in the market that you have to have 20% down or you can't buy a house. That is absolutely not true. There's all types of different loan products and programs that, down payment assistance, USD loans are, and you can speak more to these, 0% down. And so you don't have to have 20% down, right? On the flip side, you do have to have some upfront money. You can't get a house for free either, right? So there's different things, that are out of pocket that you need prior to actually closing when you have your down payment and your closing costs and all that. And some of those are inspection costs, right? A home inspection can run you anywhere from $350, $380, $500, depending on what you have done. You need earnest money. That money needs to be submitted kind of with the contract or within a couple days, weeks from ratifying the contract. And I just think sometimes people either are over prepared or not prepared to have that kind of money right up front to pay for things.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So I think the solution to make sure you're prepared, I know this is a little self-serving, but to be prepared to buy a home, especially as a first-time home buyer, is get your team together early on. And in my mind, your team is a really efficient and awesome real estate agent. It's a great lender who knows the numbers and can really help you feel confident and competent in your decisions. And those are your first two team members. After that, the realtor and lender, they can help you build the rest of your professional team, which would be like an inspector, an attorney. It could be other parts of that team. But if you have that first, then you'll be more confident, prepared to do it. Because a lot of people, they have a tendency to not want to reach out and build a team until they think they're ready. But
right.
But getting ready, the team would be better to have while you're preparing than
right.
to just say, hey, I've been preparing to buy a home for the last 7 months. I think I did everything right. Let me talk to someone, where they could have missed something 6 months ago that they could have had ready now, that kind of thing. Right.
And you do a great job about providing, the kind of a estimated cost, right, for the transaction with closing and all the fees and things that go into it. So I know I rely on you a lot. Like, hey, what do they, if they're approved for this price point, how much do we need for closing? Do we need to ask for closing costs or assistance or whatever? I'm not in their personal finances, right? By any means. You're legally not even allowed to share that, right?
Right.
But I have to have some idea or ballparks of what we're working with, because some of those things go into making the offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my job has made me now. It's like I'm the guy on the first date that asks you all the questions you shouldn't ask. I'm like, hey, how much money do you have in your bank account? Oh yeah, that's interesting. What's your social security number?
Prove it. Give me your pay stubs.
But that's what we need to do, right? And again, that's, I think, what makes a real estate agent, a mortgage professional, a great team, because the realtor is not necessarily going to get together on the buyer consult and go over all the finance. How much money do you have? What's your social security? What's your credit score? All these questions that would be a little awkward for the realtor to ask. And maybe just not needed, right? And where I can be on the phone with them for a few minutes and get the approval to ask questions. Hey, can I ask you some questions that are needed for the mortgage? Yeah. Okay. What's your date of birth? What's your social security? What's, all those regular questions that you wouldn't ask someone on a first date, that kind of thing.
I love that. That's a weird analogy.
Yeah. So it's all good. I think we'll wrap up with a question. And again, this one will be from your perspective, and a little bit of a sale, but it's a true sale. Like, why would someone want to work with a real estate agent to go out and buy a home as opposed to just calling, a listing agent and not have representation?
Well, you said it right there, right? The listing agent is hired by the seller. So their first job is to protect and look out for the best interest of the seller. The reason you would want to hire a buyer's agent is so you have that representation, right? And there's plenty of agents that do both sides. It's called dual agency, and so they represent both. And it's our license are bound by we have a code of ethics that we have to follow, and so. But again, if you're in the situation where you don't care about that, or if you're thinking, hey, if you're hired by the seller first, how do I know you're not going to, put them before me. And I like to think that, all agents are ethical and they do the best they can. But again, I think it's somebody that's in your court that you've hired, that you've interviewed, right, in our buyer's consult, that is going to bat for you, right? They're looking out for your best interest. And I tell my clients, my job is to give you the information. I'm not going to give you my opinion because it's not, my money, it's not my house, right? But I'm going to give you the facts so that you can make a decision. You're only going to get my opinion if I think you're going to shoot yourself in the foot with something. So, or I'll give you a heads up. Hey, this potentially could happen. I'm not a lawyer, but you might want to call them, or hey, check with Jed before you make that move, right? Yeah. So it really goes back to the team. And then, like I said, just the team and the agent that supports you and has your best interest moving forward.
Cool. Perfect. I appreciate that. I want to throw this up on the screen. Tell me if these numbers look right to you, Beth. But I hope you don't mind me sharing your phone number.
Yeah.
Most realtors don't. Stuff like that.
My phone rings so much. 2 more calls isn't going to make a difference.
Yeah. If you've been watching this or you watch this, in the future or whatever, this is Beth's phone number. She's easy to get a hold of. I've learned that one of the tips, and maybe if you just need a successful tip, if you're watching this, if you want to be successful in what you're doing now, pick up your phone when people call, talk to them, share with them what they're looking for. Beth will do that for you. So that's a great way to get a hold of Beth right there on that line. And with that, I think we'll cut this. Any last words of wisdom?
I don't think so. I think now is a good time, depending on who you are, whenever you're ready to buy a house. And Jed and I make a great team. So like I said, we're happy to help.
Yeah, that sounds good. You just sparked one thing in my mind, and I'll leave on this. People ask me a lot, is this a good time to buy a house? I'm pretty light on that. I'm not trying to sell anyone. I'm buying anything. I don't sell products. I give people information, and I let them make up their mind, what feels right to them. And so there's people right now that is the right time for them to buy a house. There's people back in 2020 when everyone was buying houses, it wasn't the right time for them to buy a house. And so if it's right to you, it's right to you, and you'll know that. But knowing the numbers, getting a team will help you make the right decision on whether or not you're going to buy right now. Okay. So we'll leave it with that. If you've made it through 20 minutes, you probably like us. And so if you do like us, share this video with your friends that want to buy houses, and let's get the word out there that we're a great team to work with. But appreciate everyone watching that. We're going to shut out. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much, Jed.